Hi everyone, welcome to the Xtravirt webinar. We're just going to give it another minute or so while attendees are just coming in and being accepted into the waiting room. So if you'll bear with us, we'll start in just a minute.
Grab a cup of tea.
Good call. Okay, so welcome to the Extra webinar that's carried out today in partnership with Rootcast. Title of the webinar is Strategies to Avoid the Descent to Legacy, and we'll explain a little bit more what we mean about that in a few moments. But first, I'd like to introduce my colleagues. So I'm Robin Gardner. I'm the Strategic Services Director here at Xtravirt. Been here for just under 7 months, and I'm responsible for our managed cloud and managed support services practices. Andy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Robin. So hi guys, I'm Andy Hine, a technical pre-sales consultant with Xtravirt, a role that I've enjoyed for just over 5 years now. I actually look after the pre-sales function as a whole for Xtravirt as well.
Okay, and Kev, our guest here from Rootcast.
Hi folks, yeah, so my name's Kev Johnson. I'm a Senior Systems Engineer at Rootcast. So I kind of deal with all of the technical side of the sales process and also the post-sale, just making sure that our customers are really getting the best value out of Rootcast Analyzer and also helping our partners to leverage the tool to deliver those services.
That's great. Thanks, guys, and thanks for joining me here on this this panel discussion and roundtable. So for everyone who's joined us online, I'm going to say this. I know that it's so rare for many people to actually ask a question, but over to the right-hand side in your control panel, there is a question and answer option. Take an opportunity to raise questions at any time during the roundtable conversations. Some of those, where it's relevant, we'll answer within the flow. Otherwise, we will come back to all of them at the end as well. Okay, so on we go. Quick background to Xtravirt. So we are a consulting and managed services organization. We've been around for over 15 years now, and we're focused on supporting the strategic and digital transformation programs with our customers. And alongside that, we also run a managed services practice, which delivers and operates both managed cloud services, so infrastructure desktop as a service, and also provides managed support services where you have technology installed within your own environment. We offer those across AWS, Azure, and VMware Cloud and on-premise platforms. And actually, from a VMware perspective, we were one of the first partners in Europe to achieve 5 master services competencies. And today we stand as the #1 certified partner within the UK as well. So what are we going to be talking about today? First, as an outset, I'm going to give a quick background and context to the discussion, look at where we are in 2020, what pressures that's placed on IT, and that concept of the descent to legacy. What do we mean by that? What are the type of drivers that could trigger that? And then feed into our next set of discussions. Number one of those is IT operations. How do we release IT from those day-to-day mundane tasks, maintaining infrastructure, and give them an opportunity to support the growth of business? We'll then look at how we understand the risks and our cloud compatibility, cloud compliance. What insights have we got, both from real customer examples, but also from industry as a whole? And lastly, we'll cover some of the options and opportunities that are available to you as customers to address those risks and put yourselves in a much stronger position moving forwards. So with that in mind, I'm going to drop us away from the slides and let's take a look at a wider conversation. So 2020, 8 months into it, or 8 months into our post-pandemic scenario, post-initiation of the pandemic scenario, we've seen a huge amount of change. We've seen businesses have to pivot their business models, move from traditional bricks and mortar operating models into a wholly digital or wholly distributed and remote working operations, depending on the industries that they're in. We've seen rapid deployments of new technologies. We've seen restructuring, furlough schemes come, go, and now just about to start off again. We've been seeing changes in direction depending on which part of the country you're based in. And almost all of those have placed new pressures, new challenges onto IT, onto end users, and onto the strategic leadership of those businesses, our employers and our customers as well. And all of those are challenges that affect our IT. They drive us into rapid decisions, rapid changes of our operating models, and create a workload that we were just not set up to manage in line with our business as usual operations. In parallel with that, we've got the need to either reduce budgets if your organization is one that has revenue challenges, or make investments to take advantage of the new situation, take advantage of new operating models that might be available to you. And IT specifically sitting in the background, we've still got the IR35 changes driving changing attitudes to the use of contractors and your ability to leverage short-term skill sets or subject matter expertise that might be available to help you. So what does that mean for our technology and our technology landscape? Well, we've got big investments coming in from digital workspace, from virtual desktops, and from digital and cloud solutions. And those are not necessarily being deployed through the same governance models that we'd have seen in the past. The engagement with compliance teams, the engagement with information security teams, the amount of due diligence that used to be put into place to ensure that they were the right fit for the organization, and that your business, your internal IT teams had the skills necessary to properly manage and maintain those systems. And that's where we come back to that question, the risk of a descent to legacy. This always existed. If you didn't manage a platform, then it'd be fantastic on day one, but come 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, issues start to arise, level of satisfaction drops, quality and performance drops away, and you're not heading towards your long-term business case and value proposition that was in your original deployment. What you do is you're heading more rapidly towards a drive for your next digital transformation or a next investment cycle to replace that technology, rather than maintaining it and managing it to high levels of standard and in line with manufacturers' guidelines. So what we'd like to do is discuss the implications of that, what we're seeing, and then talk through mechanisms, practices, operational processes that we can all put in place to avoid those risks creeping up on us. Guys, I'm sure we're seeing that out in our own customer bases. Kev, what are you seeing out there from a Rootcast perspective?
Yeah, so what we've really seen is two differing approaches to the whole COVID situation. The first one was, okay, as you mentioned, it was kind of like, okay, well, we need to embrace remote working immediately, and we might not necessarily have the cycles to go and deploy all of that VDI, all of that remote working infrastructure on premises, or even at all. Maybe we need to lean on some kind of managed services. But yeah, so where we've seen this being deployed internally, you're absolutely right. The attitude towards governance has kind of been a little bit laissez-faire. It's been a little bit, we just need to get this stuff done, and then we'll deal with security, compliance, all the rest of it as an afterthought almost. So there's that side of things. The other really common thing that I've been seeing is organizations that have basically just been going, okay, right, hard change freeze. We're not doing anything now. And from that perspective, there's also risks in doing that, because if there are risks if there's risks in your environment, things that could take down your environment, things that, potential security vulnerabilities, these vulnerabilities are still being discovered, they're still being exploited. So if you put yourself in this hard change freeze, then the thing to bear in mind there is that the malicious, the bad actors out there, they don't care whether you're in a change freeze. In fact, they'd really love you to be in a change freeze, because it means you're not removing those risks from your environment. And neither of those approaches really work as we now start to look at things from a more long-term perspective. It now looks like COVID is going to be the reality for some time yet. Where there's talk about, are we going to be able to see our loved ones at Christmas? I'm taking a slightly longer term view of this, that, you know, if we're rid of this by Easter next year, I think we'll have been extremely lucky. But, you know, these hard change freezes, businesses are kind of reassessing those now, and they're kind of like, okay, how do I deal with all of this backlog of work? How do I prioritize this stuff? What can I do? How can I make life easier for myself, and remove these risks and make sure that we're operating a secure, compliant infrastructure? And they're looking for tooling that's that can help them there. And, you know, that's one of the things that Rootcast Analyzer can help with, but also from a managed services perspective, what you good folks at Xtravirt can help with as well.
Those are really good points. I mean, Andy, we're actually seeing customers who have made significant investments, aren't we, in response to COVID and changing working conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we speak to hundreds of customers. You know, we speak to customers every day with a very sort of mix of projects, some strategic, some tactical, and those tactical solutions are really implemented to solve specific short-term challenges, right? And what better challenge than what's been happening this year in terms of response to COVID. So Kev already touched on it in terms of the VDI adoption. So that lockdown forced the workforce to work remotely, which has meant businesses had to, you know, rapidly deploy solutions to deliver their applications and content out to their users over the internet a lot of the time. So we've seen a lot of examples in educational customers, so lots of colleges and universities that have had to pick up on, you know, blended learning and virtual classrooms and that kind of thing. And it's not only, you know, virtual desktops that we've been seeing these guys deploy. We had one university that, in order to start the term on time, basically they needed to just give their students that were working at home access to their physical machines that were inside the campus, and we were able to do that with VMware Horizon's remote PC access feature. So yeah, lots of that, and kind of continuing with that theme. And again, Kev touched on it around cloud adoption. So if you think back to lockdown one, even getting access to your data centers and your colos was actually quite problematic in the first case. So it led to a massive spike in organizations looking to cloud. So guys like the VMware Cloud or AWS or Azure, to maybe host these virtual desktops, but also to host other infrastructure-based workloads as well. So the pandemic brought business continuity into like massive focus. So having that having the idea that you would never be able to go into your data center, you know, I don't think anyone's thought about before. So having a totally offsite DR capability was at the forefront of quite a lot of customers of thinking. We've got quite a lot of customers within the finance sector as well. We're looking to do just that. I guess because of, you know, the nature of their business, and you know, the potential impact of any outages, or not being able to utilize their on-premise stuff. So all of those things led to a massive focus on speed, as you guys have already touched on, leading to some of that kind of governance and compliance and control kind of taking a bit of a back seat, not only with the new kind of projects and solutions that are being deployed, but it also took internal resources away from BAU. So it's kind of twofold. So it's leading to a gap over there as well. And this is not unique to this year. It's been amplified, but we've seen this for a number of years as well.
I think those are really good comments. I'm familiar with the university you talked about and the changes to blended learning. I think what's interesting coming off the back of that is that increasingly it's not seen now as a reaction that's needed temporarily to address the pandemic and remote working while it's mandated, but these are now huge opportunities to grow a different arm to the business, to address an international student community in a completely different way to what has been managed in before. And we see the growth of massive online learning capabilities that the traditional establishments can start to move into as they expand these solutions and techniques as well. I'm interested in the skills though, because as these technologies are being rapidly adopted, it's one thing to pick a leading off-the-shelf capability that can be deployed in the time that's available to meet the demands of business leadership, but actually having the skills to install it and operate it on a day-to-day basis is one thing. and then alongside that, the skills to respond when there's an issue, or respond when there's a major upgrade or patch cycle kicks in, and understand the implications on your business model. That's a whole different ball game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I'm certainly from the days when I was a sysadmin, and working as a consultant as well. These products, a lot of organizations, they will engage with a professional services partner to get these tools deployed, and maybe to deliver some training so that your in-house staff can then support these and make sure that they're running to the best of their capabilities, and all of that kind of stuff. Now, because again we have this lockdown, there's not really that handover hasn't really been happening in a lot of organizations I've spoken to. So you kind of, it's like, well, okay, we've got this hot potato. Let's just hope it doesn't explode in our faces. And fingers crossed that's going to be the case. But again, it's there are organizations out there like yourselves at Xtravirt who I would imagine could you've got a lot of really super smart people, both from a pre-sales and from a post-sales deployment and support perspective. So it seems like a no-brainer to me to look there to help to cover the skills gap.
Okay. And one of the things that I've had in the back of my mind is the challenge of the quality of the application and platform landscape that now sits out there today. If I go back earlier in my career, and when I say that, I'm only talking 4, 5, 6 years ago, platforms failed, applications failed on a monthly, quarterly basis. Businesses expected them to fail, and as we built our skills fixing failures, and we tuned our operational response and our incident response so that we could bring them back online quickly. And often it was failures that drove our patch cycle. So our applications were well maintained and well patched because they failed. We carried out root cause analysis, and the first action was, okay, we better apply the latest patches. If they're not failing, then actually operational focus can drift. It can settle. There's a level of complacency that can settle in that says, okay, well, if it's working for everybody, I don't need to touch it. I can focus on more urgent business demands. And let's face it, right now there are a huge slew of more important business demands across the whole of IT. And in line with that as well, we see platforms like VMware Cloud Foundation, where actually it has increased capability to self-manage, to manage its update cycles, etc. itself, auto updates within our browsers and everything else. Again, take the focus back, and so they get forgotten. Therefore, there's a compliance drift, a currency drift that creeps in, and perhaps it's only once the notification comes through that the auditors are turning up in 2 weeks' time that drives the trigger response that says, oh my God, it's time to bring ourselves back up to date. We haven't got long. How do we understand our current status? And so what sort of mechanisms have you got available, Kev and Andy? What type of services do we have on offer that can help with that validation cycle?
Sure. So I'll just jump in here. And so from a Rootcast perspective, that's pretty much what we do. So we monitor those environments. We have this tooling that we've built ourselves that scans against things like best practices. We're going to scan your entire environment against the VMware knowledge base, against best practices for not only VMware on-premises stuff, but also the AWS public cloud or VMware Cloud on AWS. And we recently added support for Kubernetes as well. So we're constantly monitoring your environment. You don't have to worry about that whole, the auditors are coming in 2 weeks. Oh, what do we do? Let's, everything else just gets dropped. So you have that whole, okay, what are our gaps? How do we find out what our gaps are? What do we need to do? With tools like Rootcast Analyzer, you can have that confidence that not only just before the auditors come in, but all year round, you've got that compliance. And it's really important because compliance really feeds into security. When we start talking about compliance and security, I often say that they're not the same thing, but they are very, very definitely related. So things like best practices, these things, the compliance standards, all of these things, they change over time. So just because something was configured in accordance with best practices when you deployed it, doesn't mean it still is. And then you start looking at things like, maybe you've got a buggy firmware that's known to cause issues with network connectivity, for example, unless you've got something that can monitor for all of these different changes that are going on in your environment, when you're happily just going along business as usual, thinking everything is fine, then you're saving up a lot of trouble for that 2 weeks prior to the auditors coming in. And also your customers, when you think about your customers, if you can tell your customers that, yeah, okay, not only are we compliant with the standard that we need to be compliant with for the industry at this specific point in time when the auditors come around once a year, but we can actually prove both to ourselves and our auditors and you, if you want to see it, that we've been compliant all year long, every single day. And as soon as we start drifting away from these compliance states, we get notifications so that we can take the relevant action. And that's really, really important to me, and it's really important to our customers. So that's kind of how we look to address these things from a Rootcast perspective. How about Andy? How about you for the in terms of the different services that you've got there at Xtravirt Managed Services?
Yeah, thanks, Kev. We've got a whole raft of services that, be it consulting-led or assessment-led services, that can help in this area. In fact, Robin, you just put some examples on the screen. So if we look at our Cloud Check service, for example, and these are kind of pre-packaged services that we put together. And Cloud Check is great for those customers that are looking at adopting some cloud technology. And what we aim to do within Cloud Check is to work with the customer to understand, firstly validate the use cases for cloud, rather than everyone must go. We validate the use cases. We look at what your requirements are, and we assess kind of the operational readiness for starting that kind of cloud journey. And there's hundreds of cloud platforms and cloud services out there. So what we do is map those requirements against what's available in the market to find the best and the most suitable kind of roadmap for and cloud platform for the customer. And not just kind of technically, but also from an operational point of view as well. So we will understand what the makeup of your team structure is like. What are the skill sets? What are the tools that you're using today? Technically and things like that. So Cloud Check's really, really, really good for that. In terms of health checks, we've got health checks across a number of different technologies, especially within the VMware stack. So if we took something basic, something kind of light touch, but really high value, something like a vSphere health check assessment. And what that does, it will analyze and gather the configuration of the environment. And the focus of the health check is to map that configuration against best practice. And we're looking for ways in which the solution can be improved, can be optimized, and take some of the headache away from the IT admin, and get more out of your investment in vSphere, if that was the case. And the third one that we're going to touch on, I say we've got a whole host of these, and we also do lots of kind of tailored services as well. But in terms of the risk and compliance assessment, so that's again, it's an assessment-led service that again gathers configuration of your environment, but rather than the focus being on kind of best practice and optimization, it's kind of assessed against a particular compliance and governance frameworks that might be important to you. So that's kind of the difference in that one.
Just picking up on those, and I think we're going to show some of the outputs that we can provide in partnership with Rootcast for that risk and compliance assessment. I think one of the key things that we provide as part of these is and the statement at the top says, our insight, your priorities. These are not a gateway for Xtravirt selling additional services. All of the services and capabilities that we offer stand alone and provide a tangible output to the customers that can be acted on by the customer, either internally if they've got the skills and capacity to do it, with another partner or existing relationship that they may have in place, or clearly from our perspective, we'd love to partner on that next step of the journey to provide that service and that capability, but they're not wholly targeted at driving the customer to a long-term relationship with Xtravirt. We believe that's built out of the trust and the quality of the services that we provide. But the key one for me in today's environment, to avoid that creeping death of compatibility or version drift, maintenance drift, and operational lack of operational management, I think really is that risk and compliance assessment. And Kev, you've got some slides that you can show us around the services and the outputs that Rootcast provides.
Yeah, sure. So just what we've got on screen here. This is just a kind of main dashboard output. We can kick out a PDF, and we can throw this data out in various different formats. But this just gives you a really good high level kind of like executive summary as to how bad things are in your specific environment. So most organizations that we work with, we'll deploy the tool, we'll do the scan. Just before we do the scan, we'll ask them how bad they think things are. Usually they're fairly confident that everything is configured correctly. So it just makes it a little bit more fun when you find out actually there's quite a lot of stuff. And all of this data is actionable as well. So you can click through on any of these points on this dashboard, and from there what you'll see is exactly what your exposure is, what the risks are, where those risks apply, and most crucially what you actually need to do in order to remove those risks from your environment. And this screen here shows you in a little bit more detail. So for example, here we've got this scan up at the top there. We can select any scan that's taken place at any point in time. So that scan could have happened 6 months ago, 9 months ago. But the really important thing is what we can actually see from this dashboard is things have been ticking along nicely, and then all of a sudden we've had this big spike, and we can select any one of those points in time and compare it against the previous scan. And that gives us information on, what's actually caused this particular spike. Is it has there been a new security risk discovered in your environment? Maybe you've got a malicious insider that's going around making configuration changes in the environment that are, introducing risk where they don't need to be. But in this specific case, we can see the top finding here is we've got an ESXi host that could crash with a purple screen of death when you're shutting it down, when you have IP6 and multicast layer discovery enabled on your physical network. So if we were to drill into that, we can go to the findings, see which hosts were affected, see which settings we need to change in order to mitigate those risks, or which patches we need to deploy in order to remove that risk. So move on to the next one. So we also deal with the analysis of syslog from the ESXi hosts. And there's a lot of data that we can pull from the logs that we're not able to gather just from static configuration analysis, which is the vast majority of what we do. But the information that we pull from there, we can correlate that against things like the VMware knowledge base. So if there's log entries there that are saying, this is a known issue with a specific firmware or a driver on a network card or a HBA that could potentially cause an interface to flap, you need to know about that. But what you might actually be seeing is just, oh, well, we're seeing some weird performance on this vSAN cluster. Because we can see the stuff in the syslog, we can correlate that directly against the KB, which shows you exactly what you need to do. And then we can also show you, from a hardware perspective, what drivers, what firmware you should be running, with links to download those things. But we also look at the general stuff that's coming from the syslog, which can just be really helpful when you're troubleshooting. This screen here shows specifically CIS, but as you can probably see over on the left-hand side there, we've got a whole bunch of different information security standards, so these different compliance frameworks. So what we can show you here is every single check that we're performing against those specific standards. And again, we're going to show you the findings, we're going to show you where your exposure is, what you need to do in order to resolve it. In some cases, for example, PCI DSS, we take all of that wording from the standard, we correlate it using things like the milestones, like the control IDs, the exact terminology that's used by the auditors, and then we provide you with a technical description which shows you what you need to do to apply it specifically to your environment. I think we've got one more, haven't we? We have. Okay, great. So yeah, so this is the hardware compatibility side of things. And as I mentioned earlier, you're going to deploy these servers. They're probably going to sit in the racks for 3, 4, 5, maybe in some customer situations, maybe 7 or 8 years. They were probably compliant with the version of vSphere that you installed them with at that point in time, but nobody's checked to see whether there's been, whether there's a buggy driver, a buggy firmware, or even if that exact hardware combination is supported with the version of vSphere that you're running now. So this is really important from a business as usual perspective, because we can help remove those risks of things like purple screens of death. But where it also comes in really helpful, you can probably see over on the left-hand side there, we have this ESXi compatibility simulation. So what we're seeing a lot of at the moment is vSphere 7 update 1 has been out a few weeks now. A lot of organizations were kind of like, we're definitely not upgrading to vSphere 7 general availability. Now that update 1's out, people are interested. They want to know, what hardware can actually be used to, do we need to buy new tin in, or can we just repurpose what we've got? Maybe save some money, sweat those assets for another year or so. So we can compare your exact hardware, the BIOS levels, the firmwares, the drivers, all of that information. We've already got that from your vSphere servers anyway. We just compare that against the HCL for the upstream version of vSphere, and we show you where your problems are going to be and what you need to do about it. And in many cases, that might just be you need to upgrade a firmware before you do these things. But we can, again, we're showing you where your exposure is and what you need to do about it. And I think that's all of them, isn't it? It is. Brilliant.
That is, yes. So from those, thanks for that, Kev. And those are really great tools to provide confidence both to the internal teams, but as you say, provide the evidence to the auditors, both internal and external, that operational management practices are robust and provide good decision support information to the internal organization. From an Xtravirt perspective, I know that we have that strong partnership with Rootcast. We've had that for a number of months now, and we're delivering Rootcast solutions either as out-of-the-box capabilities for customers to operate themselves, or as a managed insight service as part of our risk and compliance check, where we can operate the platform effectively as an Xtravirt service, provide the reporting and the recommendations to customers, assist in that prioritization exercise, and if appropriate, we can carry out the corrective actions on behalf of the customer in line with their change management and priority decisions as well, to ensure that the customers have as much support as they require based on their internal capabilities and internal organizations. I was thinking as you were talking through that, from a cloud perspective, a lot of that underlying maintenance is actually carried out by the cloud provider. So the organization, the customer, has moved up a level. But that doesn't take away risk. I mean, surely I would assume from a customer perspective, as the cloud platform changes, adds new features or deprecates features, then that can introduce risk at the same time. I mean, and Andy, we see that in our customers as well, don't we? And there's challenges associated with managing that environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So with cloud-based platforms, whether they're infrastructure as a service or software as a service, you're not in control of that upgrade cycle anymore. The vendor or the manager of that platform is. So you need to make sure that whilst they're upgrading that side of the platform, particularly in a hybrid cloud environment, what sort of knock-on effects does that have for you on the on-premises side if you're worried about compatibility and the impact of some of those changes? So a really good example would be something like VMware Cloud on AWS. So there's some great kind of integration and hybrid cloud modes that you can run between on-premise and in the cloud. For example, VMware change or upgrade, say NSXT, which is in control of the software-defined networking. What impact does that have to your network connectivity back on premise, and will that cause an issue for you, and or potentially a redesign and things like that? So yeah, so even though the actually upgrading of the components is taken away from you, it still doesn't take away the headache, particularly around compatibility and impacts of integrations and integration points, APIs and services and things that you're relying on for that integration. So yeah.
Fantastic, and that's great. And I'm sure that everybody who's attending is not going to be surprised when I say that Xtravirt has some services and capabilities to also help with the management of those services. The first area is our lifecycle support services. So this is around software and custom support options that recognize that our customers and our clients want to own and manage the normal day-to-day operations of their environments. So we have three primary flavors, but these can be flexed and extended with other capabilities as well. One of the ones that we're seeing a huge amount of growth in the market and attention from the market is our retained response service, and that recognizes that For the majority of cloud customers, actually there is a significant amount of internal capability to run, operate and maintain that platform. But at critical events, major upgrades, or in the event of a significant business continuity issue, actually it's a huge benefit to have an escalation route, access to additional knowledge, additional resource capacity, a bit like the AA, a breakdown service that can come on call and augment your own internal resource capability. So retained response is the service that we offer to provide that. On top of that, our production support service is really a level 3, level 4, day-to-day, month-to-month, on-hand capability to provide the next level of knowledge beyond your internal operational teams that allow you to focus on business as usual maintenance activity or business as usual utilization driven ownership of the platforms. And when you want to do something more complex, actually we can provide support for that. For those businesses where you want to look to elevate IT operations to a much more supportive part of the IT organization focused on business change and business enablement, then our enterprise support model is much more proactive. We'll take responsibility for operational monitoring, proactive maintenance, and the response and incident management associated with those. And alongside that, we'll also provide strategic insight and all of the risk and compliance support functions that we've talked about on the call today. Those come out of the box as part of the package. So not only do you have the confidence that your platform is being well managed, but you have the evidence to prove it, to provide to leadership or to auditors, and you have the ability for our consultants, a managed service organization, to provide insight and contribution into your future roadmap and planning life cycle. We also have a managed cloud services portfolio. Andy, did you want to just run through the products that are part of that portfolio?
Yeah, sure. So one of the products I've touched on already, actually, which is the VMware Cloud on AWS. So this is perfect for customers that are running VMware on-premise, which, let's face it, that's quite a lot, and want to kind of maintain and grow that investment. So what VMware Cloud on AWS allows you to do is run the familiar VMware-based technologies such as vSphere and vSAN and NSX for software-defined networking. It allows you to run that VMware environment inside Amazon's AWS Cloud. So as I touched on before, so there's great integration options for true cloud hybridity with your on-premises environment and your VMware Cloud and AWS environment. So the use cases for that, they're vast, and it could be, you need to evacuate your data center, or you actually want to operate in a hybrid model. It supports DR. It can host virtual desktop environments like Horizon, which is I know it's on there as well. So VMware Horizon obviously is a suite of technology within the digital workspace from VMware. It allows you to provide virtual desktops and applications, either from on-premises environments or via the Horizon Cloud, which allows you to host the desktops in a cloud of your choice, really. So it could be on VMC on AWS, it could be in Azure, and there's other options such as IBM and things like that as well. And finally, the Workspace ONE option, again within the digital workspace. So this allows you to get that control and governance and management of your entire kind of end user device estate. So from a mobile device management point of view, mobile application management, and you can also leverage the kind of application access side of Workspace ONE for integration, single sign-on into SaaS and web-based applications as well. So yeah, it's a really great tool and offers that real compliance and control for your entire environment.
That's great, and I think it's important to outline the fact that we can either enable customers to, again, transition, adopt, or have early proof of concept of each of these technologies, But we also deliver those as managed cloud services, where we take the XMS production or XMS enterprise capabilities and wrap those around one or more of the cloud solutions and services. And those aren't just available for the 3 services that you see there. We also offer that across the whole VMware Cloud and security suites, and out into other cloud providers as well, as an ever expanding opportunity as the cloud delivers more as a service models and capabilities. Okay, so just then coming to a close, clearly there's a lot of next steps available to you. For more information on any of the areas that we've talked about today, there's an email address there. You can find all 3 of us presenters, all 3 of us presenters out on LinkedIn as well, and you can contact us through that, or to info@xtravirt.com. More information about the Xtravirt portfolio is on the what we do section of our website as well. We are eager to get out and help you get an insight as to how those technologies or the services can help your specific requirements. Andy mentioned the Cloud Check service early on. There's also our test drive capabilities, where we use Xtravirt infrastructure within our customer experience center and within the VMware Cloud environments to deliver that taster of the technologies and the services, so that we can bring a reality check to actually how they can tangibly fit into your organization or help your organization. And also, in conjunction with Kevin, the team at Rootcast, be really happy to offer demos of Rootcast Analyzer, either as an embedded service within an Xtravirt delivery model, or as a direct opportunity for implementation and operation within your own solution. So
Absolutely.
with that, I'd like to open up to my 2 colleagues and ask if there's any final comments. Kev, from yourself?
I was just looking for the questions. We've not had any questions as yet, so if anyone's got any, please do get them in as soon as possible. We are wrapping up now. I guess from my perspective, you know, from a Rootcast perspective, what we're looking to do is just, you know, to help empower customers to remove that risk from their environment, to help them deliver what they need to deliver with the staffing levels that they've got, so that their, you know, their sysadmins can go home on time, they can have their evenings back, they can have their weekends back, and, you know, they can have that confidence that when, you know, even if you had a surprise audit tomorrow, it doesn't matter, because you're already meeting all of those requirements. We do have one other feature that I didn't speak about, actually, that we introduced recently, is this idea that we do have some customers who need to meet things like PCI DSS, but they also have their own internal audit standards. So we have some capabilities around building checks for that. We've got just over 2,500 checks within the product as it is, but coming down the line, we're going to have the capability to write your own checks as well. So if you've got strange internal audit policies, and I've worked a lot of places where that is the case, you know, we can definitely help you on that front as well. There's nobody out there on the market that can help with that. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say from a Rootcast perspective. So thanks Robin for having me. Anything from you, Andy?
No, I think you've summed up really nicely there, Kev. Just if anyone does have any further questions, or you want to talk to us about your project, please reach out to us. We would encourage a conversation within my team, within pre-sales, and we can really dig into what your requirements are and how we can help move your project forward.
Fantastic, and I think that close from me is just to remind everybody that an unmanaged environment does become a legacy, that with increasing incident volumes and a drop in user satisfaction, if it doesn't remain a focus in one way or another. So the route to that is either having a tool or a capability that gives you that continual monitoring and insight, or a service relationship that can provide support and provide that diligence while you release your internal teams to deliver value to your businesses, which, I mean, let's face it, right now, across a lot of organizations, a lot of industry verticals, it is a survival focus. And we want to make sure that wherever possible, we provide that support to enable you to focus on what's critical for your business and can best leverage your internal business knowledge that your IT operations teams have in buckets and have a great capability to apply. So with that, I'll say thank you to Andy, thank you to Kev, and thank you to all of our attendees. The webinar will be available for playback later. We'll send that link out to everybody as well, and that does have the contact information at the end if you have any more questions. So thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.